हॅलो. नाही चालूच तर आहे. आता मी चालू केलं, तुम्हाला इन केलंय मी, पण ते रिस्पॉन्ड नाही करून आले लवकर. मी बरेच वेळेचा क्लिक केलं, परंतु ते तुम्ही जॉईन अजून आले नाही खालच्या ह्याच्यामध्ये. दुसरं म्हणजे आज आता पहिले 2 सेशन खोसे सरांचे आहे. त्याच्यानंतर एक मिनिट, मला आवाज म्यूट करू द्या इकडचा. काय अं, हा. नंतर 4थं सेशन जे आहे ते माझं राहणार. हा. तर माझा पण पीपीटी असेल वाटतं त्या. हो, यांनी पाठवलेली असेल का पाहून घ्या एकदा. मी पाठवून देतो तुम्हाला. गुगले सरांनीच बनवलं, यांनी हरले सरांनीच बनवली होती, त्यांनी पाठवली असेल कदाचित. आहे ना. हा. आणि यांचं काही घेऊन ये आपण आज, ठाकूर सरांचं. ते मागे लागलेले आहेत. मी काही फोनच नाही उचलत आता. मी तर कॉलच नाही करत आता. त्यांनी 2 दिवस पक्का करून टाकला ना मागे पुढे सगळं.
Hello.
Good morning, Jose sir.
Good morning.
Sir, we will now start because the participants are in there.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
good morning, all the participants. I, Professor Praveen Khandwe, coordinator of this STDP AICT sponsored 1 week short-term training program on computational intelligence in earthquake resistant design. So for last 5 days, we are listening to the different experts are there. So I welcome on the behalf of Department of Civil Engineering, Professor Ramegi College of Engineering and Management, Badnera, for this 6th day of the short-term training program. Today we have with us Dr. Vijay Khose sir, and now there are very interesting hands-on session with Dr. Khose sir for using the ETAB. So here there are 4 sessions will be there. In the last session will be on the feedback session. So as I have made the already announcement, the last session, feedback session, attendance is compulsory to all the participants. So all of you have to remember that. And now without wasting any time, we will now switch over to the today's session. So I call upon Dr. Vijay Khose sir to start the today's session. Please, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And good morning, everyone. So as of today, we have discussed like how to model geometry in the ETABS and how to get gravity load applied. So the next is seismic loading. So in seismic loading, we know as per IS 1893, the lateral force due to earthquake is given by equation VB is equal to AH into W. So AH is the horizontal seismic coefficient, and how we can get that? That is given by this expression called as like Z by 2 into SA by G divided by R by I. So Z is seismic zone factor, and the SA by G is spectral acceleration coefficient, R is response reduction factor, and I is importance factor. So, so how can we get zone factor? So how to identify seismic zone of your structure? So code has provided a map, so where in like different seismic zones are marked. So basically we have 4 seismic zone: zone 2, 3, 4 and 5. So different color coding is given. Based on that, you can locate your seismic zone, and the zone factor corresponding to seismic zone are provided. So for zone 2 it is 0.1, and for zone 5 it is 0.36. So in our case, our seismic zone is 3, so our zone factor will be 0.16. So there is a other way to get seismic zone and zone factor. So code has provided a list of the important city where the seismic zone and zone factors are provided. So the next one is importance factor. So importance factor as per code is classified into 3 categories. One is like critical and lifeline structure. The second one is business community centers, and third is rest for the all. So for these 3 categories, we have the first category we are using 1.5 importance factor. Second category we are using 1.2, and third category we are using 1. So these categories are explained here in detail. So the what is included in first category is like schools, critical governing buildings, then hospital building, telephone exchange. So the basically building that has post earthquake importance, those buildings are considered as critical and lifeline structures. So the buildings which are critical in supporting uh, the damage, casualties or injuries after the earthquake. So that is also considered as the important and lifeline structure. So other one is residential and commercial building. So the here you can see there is one criteria. So wherein you have a occupancy more than 200%. If your occupancy is less than 200%, then that will come into category 1. So there you can use importance factor of 1. So the code has some notes for this. So what code is saying, like whatever importance factor are provided here, if the owner and design engineers of buildings and they feel like we should consider higher important factor, so that uh, you can consider. The other is, let us say there is a one building complex and there are around 5 wings, and in every wing there are around like 50 uh, people living in that one wing. So if you consider that complex, so in that complex, uh, so more than like 200 people living in that complex, but in each building only 50 people are living. So we have to consider individual building, individual unit we have to consider. So that's why we need, in that case, we need not to consider the importance factor 1.2. We have to consider importance factor as 1. So because the occupancy of that individual unit, individual building is less than 200. So we can consider importance factor 1. And the other condition is like in the building with mixed occupancy. So where the different I factors are applicable for respective occupancies, larger of the importance factor I values should be considered. So it may happen, so in a given a building, so you might have a mixed occupancy. Like in some building there are hospitals, or uh, there are like a more people living in there. So what you can do, if you can use like this 1.5 factor for designing that. So you have to take that call based on the judgment. Like let us say that building housing around 250 people, and there is one hospital in there. So that we cannot design a whole building for that. So maybe the portion of that building we can, particular that portion we can design for the uh, that 1.5 importance factor, and remaining we can design for 1.2 importance factor. So the next is response reduction factor. The response reduction factor is the factor which consider the nonlinear behavior of building and inherent structural ductility, redundancy, and overstrength. So we know the whatever design we are doing is based on the linear behavior of building. We are not doing nonlinear modeling of the building. So our design is basically elastic, based on elastic design. So what we are doing using this response reduction factor, we are considering the impact of nonlinear behavior, and the using this we are also considering the ductility. We know what is ductility, redundancy, and overstrength. Then how we can get this response reduction factor? So in code there is a table 9 wherein this uh, different response reduction for the sorry, different response reduction factor for the different structural systems are provided. Then let me explain you what is the ductility and how we can calculate that. So let us say your structure is behaving elastic. So then the shear force versus displacement plot will be linear. But if your structure has the non-linear behavior, then there will be a point where structure will yield, and then there will be a non-linear behavior. So the structure where it's yield, that point is called as delta y, and the ultimate displacement where your structure will collapse, it's called as delta m. So this ratio of delta y by delta m, delta m by delta y is called as ductility, and that is approximately equal to response reduction factor. So we are doing elastic design. So we are not taking this component into the account. We are directly reducing our elastic force from our elastic force. If you design the structure as elastic, so that your design base shear will be Vu. But instead of that, we are taking the effect of ductility into account, and we are reducing that force by this. So as said, so in table 9 you will find different response reduction factors for different structural system. So in our case, we have RC buildings with special moment resisting frame. So our response reduction factor will be 5. Then the next is design acceleration coefficient. So this design acceleration coefficient is depend on the soil type, then the natural period of the structure, and the damping. So the whatever plots code has provided, those are for the 5% damping. So you can see the different plots are provided based on the which method you are going to use. For equivalent static method, we have a different response spectrum, and for the response spectrum method, we have different response spectrum. So you can see the difference is only here in this area. So in equivalent static method, you are considering only one mode. So if you consider only one mode, and if your mode is falling in this range, okay, so then you will get a lesser value of SA by G. But in reality, it may happen that your structure means your period may get elongated, and if your period is getting elongated, then your structure will fall somewhere here, and then your structure will experience more force. So to account for that, so what code has done, this flat region is extended. So there is initial linear range is excluded, and the flat region is extended. So if for this equivalent static method, you will have a maximum force in this range also, this linear range also, which is for the response spectrum method. So we should know like which method we are going to select. Based on that, we will select the response spectrum. So response spectrum is also depends on the soil type. So how many soil types are there? There are 3 soil types, and how we are going to classify soil. So that is based on the SPT value N, and the SPT value for the 30 meter depth. So it may happen in like 30-meter depth, you have different soil layers, and in different soil layers, you will have a different N value. So how to get that N value for this? So what we have to do, we have to do a weighted average of N values for the different soil layers for the top 30 meter. So based on that, we can get one average value for that soil, and based on that we can define. So now once we have average N value, what we have to do, we have to compare with this. Like if N value is more than 30, then your soil type will be 1. If it is between 10 to 30, then your soil type will be 2. And if it is less than 10, then your soil type will be 3. So in our case, we have considered the soil soil type as 2. So our soil class will be 2. Our soil is the n value is between 10 and 30. So our soil class is 2. And for different soil class, you can see different expressions are provided. For SA by G expressions are provided. So here you can see between between 0 to 0.1, you have 1 plus 15t, and between 0.1 to 0.55, this is 2.5, and this is 1.36 divided by t for 0.5 by 2, 4, and for period more than 4 seconds, it is 0.34. Now here you can see, so this region is constant for all the soil types up to this flat region 2.5. So this period is changing for depending on the different soil type. So you can see here, so the spectra is constant up to here for all the soil type, and after that, so as your soil type is increasing, your soil is this curve is having more value. So what does it mean? So if you have a looser soil or a higher soil class, there is amplification in the uh, spectral acceleration. So that's why selecting the appropriate soil type is important. So in our case, we are going to use these expressions. So then what is the damping ratio? What code says about damping ratio? So you can see here, the code is saying like 5% of damping for the purpose of estimating AH in the design lateral force VB of a building as per 7.2.1, irrespective of material of constructions. Means even if you have a steel, RCC, or masonry, or combination of any material, irrespective of any material, we have to use 5% of critical damping. So if you remember in earlier version of code, so there were different ductility values depending on the material, and the corresponding modification factor were provided. So code was specifying the response spectrum for the 5% damping. So here we need not to do that correction, but earlier in earlier version there were different ductility factors. And further, this 5% damping is also we have to use for the any type of structural analysis employed. So whether you select the equivalent static method or dynamic analysis method. So now we know the what is the soil type and what is the ductility. Damping we need to consider. So based on that, we can select the response spectrum. So now I am switching to ETABS screen. So now here you can see how to define the response spectrum. Go to define, then functions, response spectrum. So here you can go and you can select IS 1893-2016, add new function. So here you can see we have different seismic zone. So let us select 3. So automatically this zone factor will change. The importance factor is 1 for our case because our building is not housing more than 200 people. So 1, and soil type is 2, and response reduction factor is 5. So based on this, our spectrum is defined. So damping is also defined as 5% by default. So here you can name this like IS 1893 part 1, sorry, soil type 2. Okay, so what if we do a site specific response spectrum? So site specific response spectrum means you are doing some analysis, and you will get the response spectrum for that particular site. So if that is given, so then how we will import that into the ETAP? So for that, what we can do, you select here user, then add new. Okay, sorry, here you have, sorry, from file. So select from file, add new function, and from that here you can click on this browse. So once you go there, so select here like text files. So, okay, then there I have like whatever response spectrum quantities I have, so that I have already copy and pasted in the one text file, so wherein you will have a period and SA by G. So that values you can enter. So here you can see I have values up to 10 seconds. So this was from the one of the site specific spectrum for the one of the site we had. So you select that and click open. And here, so it is taking time to load. So here you can see that file. So whatever it's given, and you can also exclude the number of rows. So we can exclude first row. So you can plot this in two way, like period and value. So other you can also do like frequency and value. So in both way you can plot. So here we can say like site specific response spectrum. So click OK. So we know how to define response spectrum. So now let me tell you, so whatever response spectrum is provided in code is normalized response spectrum. So if we plot those value, so it will look like this. So after that, we are multiplying it by Z, that is called as a zone factor. So if you multiplying, because this is normalized for like everywhere in the India. So for given soil type and the damping, this is everywhere in India. But you are applying zone factor, so multiplying it by zone factor, and then you will see you are bringing it down. So you are making it applicable to your region, your site. Then again you are dividing it by 2. So whatever this response spectrum is for the maximum considered earthquake. So this maximum considered earthquake is like the worst earthquake that can occur into design life of your structure. But we are not designing for that. We are designing our structure for design basis earthquake. So for design, to bring it down to design basis earthquake, so we are dividing it by 2. And again, we are multiplying it by I into R. So I, if for the importance factor, we are multiplying by I. So that means we are increasing the value, and we are dividing by R, that response reduction factor. So we are considering the non-linear behavior, redundancy, and ductility of the structure. So So we have also done with this. So now we know we have defined the different parameters required to calculate AH. So the next parameter to get the design lateral force is the seismic weight. So how we can get that seismic weight and how much weight we should consider. So what code says that seismic weight for each floor is its full dead load plus appropriate amount of imposed load. So the imposed load here is live load. So what code says further, while computing weight of each floor, the weight of column walls in any story shall be appropriately proportional to the floors above and below. Any weight supported in between the stories shall be distributed to floors above and below in inverse proportion to its distance from the floors. So basically what code is saying, so we have to lump mass at the floor level. So and whatever load we have due to like walls and the columns, that we have to distribute 50% on story above and 50% on story below. So here we can see for story 4 we will consider the 50% weight of the columns between story 3 and story 4. For stories 3 we can see that we are considering 50% of the column above and 50% of the column below. Similarly, we can do for story 2 and story 1. So the mass is 50% will go to level above and 50% will go to level below. So that mass we are lumping at the floor level using this. So there is also one clause for the live load reduction. So in table 10, this live load reduction is provided. So up to and including 3, we have to consider only 25% of the mass. And if it is above the 3, then we have to consider 50% mass. So there is a one more provision. So wherein what code is saying, so the imposed load and roof need not to be considered. So we need not to consider imposed load on the roof. So that's why we have defined that while defining load patterns, we define live load and we have defined a roof live. So that load we can exclude from the seismic weight. So if you have any occupancy where your live load is more than 3 kilonewton per meter square, then we need to define a case where we will have live loads applied in a separate load case so that we can apply that factor while considering the seismic weight. So now we know that we are not considering live load on the roof. Okay. But what code is saying, the weight of equipment and other permanently fixed facilities should be considered. So that we have to remember. Okay, so how we are going to define mass source? To define mass source, go to modify mass source. Since our model is run, I will unlock. Go to define mass source, then modify mass source. So here you can see we have different option: element, self mass, then additional masses, and specified load pattern. So we are going to consider this option, specified load pattern. So we know that we are considering 100% dead load. Then SDLE is also type of dead load. So we are considering 100%. And the live load, our live load value is 2. So it's less than 3. So we are considering 25%. If it would have been like more than 3, then we need to create a another live load case where we will have a load applied more than 3 kN per meter square, and then here we can add that, and we will say live load for less than 3 is 0.25, and for live load for more than 3 is 0.5, and then roof live load we are not considering here. So the dead load plus 25% live load is your mass source. Okay. I think that ETAP screen was not shared, so I will just show you quickly. So go to define, then mass source, and here you can select that additional load pattern, and dead load uh, we have 1 factor, and for live load we have 2.25. So the next is this. So the earthquake analysis method. So what earthquake analysis methods we are going to use? So the what code specify, so there are 2 methods, the equivalent static method and dynamic analysis method. So, and in dynamic analysis method, we have 3 types: response vector method, model time history methods, and time history method. So we are going to consider only 2 methods here, the equivalent static method and the response vector method. So the equivalent static method may be used for the analysis of regular structure with approximate natural period less than 0.4 seconds. So if we want to use the equivalent static method, your period should be less than 0.4 second and your building should be regular. And how do you calculate the natural period? So for the natural period, we have a different expressions provided in the code. So if it is like RC moment resisting frame, this equation for steel building, there is a different equation. And RC steel composite, we have a different equation. So then code also provides the equation to calculate time period for buildings with RC structural wall. And for other buildings, we have this equation. So then in this equation, you can see it a function of height. So how to get height of building? So there is a one situation where like we have basement wall and it is well separated from the structure. So that means it is not connected to retaining walls. So then you can have like height from the bottom of the foundation to the top of the structure. So there is a other case where like we have a very strong walls here, like basement wall retaining walls. So then we can consider it from the top of the floor, ground floor to the top of the height. So other case is like we might have this basement box. So in that case also we need to consider from the height above the ground. So there is one more case wherein we might have a podium floors where the footprint is more, and after that we will have a reduced floor plate. So in that case, we have to do like weighted average to get the height. So there is one more case where our building might be on hill. So there we have to consider the minimum height. So that is above the top of the hill. And code also specifies like which width we should consider to calculate the time period. So in this case, we have to consider wider like footprint width, and here also we have to consider wider footprint. So now based on this, we know our structure is like moment resisting frame, but we have infill frames in the our structure. So in that case, we have to use like other building equation, this one, like TA is equal to 0.09 h divided by square root of d. So the period in x direction would be 0.09 into h. Our height of building is 12.4 meter divided by square root of 15. So here you can see in x direction we have width 15 meter and y direction we have width 8 meter. So 0.09 into h divided by, we are calculating period in x direction. So we have to consider width of building in x direction, that is 15 meter. So your period will be 0.288 second. So in y direction, our width is 8 meter. So here we have inputted that 8 meter. So you can see the period is 0.394 second. So your period is just less than 0.4 second. So, and you have a regular building. So we can use this equivalent static method to analyze this. So in equivalent static method, the what code is saying, the VB shall be computed for the building as a whole. So we will calculate VB for the building, and then this VB will be distributed to the different levels. So different levels based on the, and it will be applied on the center of the mass of the building, that floor. The design seismic force at each floor level shall be distributed to individual lateral load resisting element through the structural analysis, considering the floor diaphragm action. And this method shall be applicable for a regular building with height less than 15 meter in seismic zone 2. Okay. And we know now, like this, we know AH and we also know W, how to calculate it. So that how we are going to distribute it, let me explain. So what code is saying, you calculate the base shear for building as a whole, and then you distribute through the apply it on the center of mass at that floor level. So we have to apply that at the center of mass at every level. So once we apply that load here, so that load will be transferred to the lateral load resisting element. So here you can see if we apply that seismic force here, that at that particular floor level, so it will travel through the slab to the shear walls here, and also we have this frame here, so it will be transferred to uh, the lateral element through the slab. So that slab we are considering as a that action is considered as a diaphragm action. So that we have to simulate. So how we can simulate that in ETABS? So we can go to ETABS screen now here. Okay, go to define and diaphragm. So in diaphragm, you have already by default uh, defined diaphragm. So here, if you go, you will see there are two types, rigid and semi-rigid. Okay. So how to consider whether diaphragm is rigid or semi-rigid? I think that you have already learned in yesterday's lecture. So when diaphragm is rigid or uh, semi-rigid or flexible. So currently we are considering rigid diaphragm. Uh, so based on this, we can decide whether your diaphragm is rigid or flexible. So if you have delta middle greater than your 1.2 times delta average, then your diaphragm will be flexible. If it is less than that, then your diaphragm will be rigid. So for considering rigid diaphragm, what code is saying that it should be a reinforced concrete monolithic slab beam floor. So our system is reinforced concrete monolithic slab beam floor. So we can consider this. And other condition is the plan aspect ratio less than 3 can be considered to be rigid diaphragm. So in our aspect ratio is 15 divided by 8 is 1.875. It's less than 3. So we are very much qualified to consider it as rigid diaphragm. So these are the conditions specified by the code. But apart from these, we have to also look for the openings in the building. So in the floor. So if you have large opening in the floor, so we cannot consider, even if we satisfy this condition, we cannot consider this as a rigid diaphragm. So we need to watch out for the openings for while considering the diaphragm, whether it is rigid or flexible. So code also provides the certain guidelines on what stiffness modifier shall be applied. So what code is saying for RC structure, 70% of the I gross of column and 35% of I gross of the beam shall be considered. That means we have to modify the stiffness of the columns and walls, columns and beams in our case. So here we can go to the tab screen and go to select. So based on object type, select all columns. So here on the right hand side, you can see all the columns are selected. Then go to assign frame. Since columns are frame, so we can go to frame and then property modifier. So in property modifier, we have to modify the moment of inertia. The moment of inertia, we have to change it to 70%. We are not going to consider 100% as per Corel requirement. So this is 70%. So hit apply. Okay. The next one is we have to consider the beams. So select all beams. You can see all beams are selected. Then go to assign frame, then property modifiers. So here we have to consider that only 35% stiffness. So 35. So 0.35 moment of inertia in 2 direction and in 3 direction. Okay. So that modifiers we have applied. So next one is we have to apply the end length offsets. So what is that end length offset? So if you see the whatever modeling we are doing, that is the approximation. So in reality, column has some width, beam has some width and depth. So what we are doing, we are modeling a column and beam as a line element. But in reality, there will be some portion, some width for joint width for that. So how we are going to simulate that? So if you see the ASC 41 2017 provision, so depending on the capacity of columns and beams, so the moment carrying capacity of columns and beams, we can assign this rigid element here for columns and beams. So if it is the ratio of these capacities is greater than 1.2, column offsets are rigid and beam offsets are not. So means if your columns are rigid, okay, so in that case you are considering only this portion as a reading, and beam we are not considering, we are not applying any rigidity in beam. So there is other condition wherein we have a beam rigid, or beam strong. So there we have to consider only beams are rigid. So here you can see only beams are considered rigid, and columns we are not considering anything. So if there might be a case in between like 0.8 to 1.2, there we are going to consider like 50% rigidity in beam and 50% in column. So ideally we should consider this one because we know as per 13920 we have to consider rigid column, strong column and weak beam analogy. So for that we should consider this. So how to apply that? So go here, select all, go to assign, frame, and end length offset. So end length offset factor we can consider if we are considering between 0.8 to 1.2. So then you can apply here that factor, like 50% beams are rigid and 50% columns are rigid. So you can apply this. So now here you can see you are seeing some rigidity shown here, like beams consider as rigid. If you can see in elevation, in any elevation you can see. So here you can consider beams are also considered rigid, particularly in that portion only, not like full beam is rigid, only that particular, that beam column joint location. So it is considered the rigid. Okay. Then so now next is to calculate the design base shear. Now we know all the parameters. So what will be design base shear? So design base shear PB is equal to H into W. So for that we know what is G, that is 0.16, R is 5, and importance factor 1. So if we put this into that equation, so we will get design base shear. So for that we will need one more parameter, that is SA by G. So now you can see this expression. So up to 0.55 second we have a 2.5 SA by G. So if you see our period in X and Y direction, it's less than 0.55. So we will have SA by G as 2.5. So putting into equations, you can see we are getting that H in X and Y direction. Since we are getting SA by G value same in both direction, we are calculating together. If we have this SA by G value different for the different direction, then we have to calculate it separately. So you can see here 0.16 divided by 2 into 2.5 into 5 by 1. So you will get this 0.04. So that means it is 4% of the seismic weight. So our design base here, this is as per code. So code also has a criteria that how much minimum base shear we should consider for the design. So what happens for the tall buildings? You can see from this chart, for the tall buildings, your height will be more. So if your height is more, so the your period will be more. So you can see here, as your height is getting increased because you have h more, so h is more, so the your period will be more. And if your period is more, so you can see this SA by G value is very less. So for taller buildings, you will find this seismic base shear very low. So the code is saying you have to design for certain like minimum base shear. So if for the zone 3, you can see the minimum base shear we have 1.1. So we cannot design structure in zone 3 for the base shear less than 1.1. So the other is the lumped mass at the floor level. So that I will explain you how to do that. But before that, if you have any question, let me know.
The chat box, some doubts are raised.
Chat box. Okay, where is that box?
By Nisar Gandhi.
Okay. While assigning diaphragm, it should be compulsory to model whole floor as one single slab or one diaphragm per floor. While assigning diaphragm, it should be compulsory to assign. Okay, so let me show you. So it depends. So what you can do, go to select all. Okay, go to assign shell. You can see my ETAP screen, right? Okay. Go to all, assign shell. Where is that? Diaphragm and D1. So here we have a different diaphragm, like rigid, semi-rigid, anything. So you can just apply. So you can see this diaphragm is assigned here. You can see the D1. Okay. So in current case, the diaphragm is defined for the whole floor, one diaphragm per floor. Okay. But there might be a cases where like you have two towers, like one tower here and one tower on this side, and it is connected by a bridge or something. In that case, you can have a two diaphragm on a given floor. Okay, in even if you don't have any connecting bridge or anything, so if there are like two separate towers, then you will have two separate diaphragms for that. Then where it's
Tamil Rasan.
Yeah, so there is like if slab is flexible, then in ETABS we need to define particular slab alone or semi-rigid diaphragm. So if slab is flexible, then in ETABS we need to define that slab alone as a semi-rigid diaphragm. So I didn't get this, but If it is flexible, means in what sense you are saying flexible? I am not sure. I am
I think
talking about.
any intermediate level slab, we can
Uh,
make it flexible.
yeah, I am saying like if it is flexible diaphragm, then we can consider it as semi-rigid at that particular level. So I am not sure what he's trying to say, but I understood that like if it is a flexible diaphragm, so then should we consider a semi-rigid? Yes, if it is flexible diaphragm, we should consider as a semi-rigid.
Any other question from other participants? You can type in the chat box.
Okay, if there is no question, then we will stop here. We will take a break and then we can start at the 11. Okay.
Thank you, Kose sir. In very simple way, you have correlated the provisions in the clause for earthquake resistant design and how they can be involved in our ETAP modeling.
Mm.
That was very simply explained by Dr. Kose sir. So thanks for this wonderful session. And again, for the next further part, we will again meeting you in the second session at 11 a.m. So for this session now today, we will stop here. And in next
Yeah.
session with the new link, we will again join 10 minutes before 11 a.m.
Okay.
So thanks to all the participants also, and we will have a 15-20 minute break. And then at 10:50, I will start the session. Sir, there is one question in the chat box.
Yeah, so if I have a large opening for MEP service, that slab alone assigned as a semi-rigid. Yes, if you have a large opening at that particular level, so then we can consider a semi-rigid diaphragm only at that level and not any other level. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There
Yeah.
is one more thing like
Yes.
can you again show how to assign column beam joint as per coordinate tabs? Okay, I will explain it in next session. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now stop for the session and then again we will meet at 11 a.m. Still, some participants are having question. Then you can type in the chat box. We will cover it in the next session.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that I will pass to Kose sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Today in the last session, you will be guided with the instructions regarding how to appear for final time-bound quiz exam. So that exam is compulsory to all. So after the fourth session, the feedback form link will be shared to all the participants through WhatsApp group. And after submitting that, then after half an hour, then the quiz link for appearing for online exam, that will be made enable. So how to appear for that final online quiz exam, that will be demonstrated within a 5 minutes in the last session. So all of you are requested to please be there for the last session where there will be a feedback session, and along with that, that other instructions and online exam quiz link and all that will be demonstrated, and then you can appear at online exam at your home. So thank you for being with this first session of the day. And now after the 20-minute break, we will again meet at 10:15 and the session will start at 11 a.m.